just stopped by the side of this forest track here. It's quite unusual in anywhere in the Sherwood Forest area because it's extremely flower rich, and consequently it's full of insects. So I might have 5-10 minutes here and see what I can find. There's a number of butterflies already. It's a smashing little area. A number of years ago, I stood here now, there'd have been very little vegetation here, and right up to this edge was all pine plantation. That pine plantation was felled and removed a number of years ago, and now we've got a lot of regrowth of various trees, including some more pines, but also silver birch, oak and sweet chestnut. But the removal of the pines a number of years ago allowed this former grass, an ordinary grass strip at the side of this forest track, to develop. It's now a haven for insects, and that's largely due to the fantastic diversity of flora to be found here. There's lots of nectar-bearing plants. In Sherwood Forest, a strip of ground rich in flowers like this is something of a real rarity. And among the range of insects that are present here, this is one of the most commonest, and this is the soldier beetle Ragwort fulva, sometimes called the bloodsucker. That's certainly one of the names we called it when we were kids. It's an immensely common beetle, can be found in hundreds, often on the top of umbellifers such as this one. They tend to congregate, and they're given the name bonking beetle as well. No clues for guessing why, because they're always in cop. Very common. I say they're not particularly large. These are little more than half an inch from head to the end of the elytra, so you're looking at about 15 mil at maximum. But they're an attractive beetle. Yet again, if this was an extreme rarity, something of this colour would be highly prized. As it isn't, and it's completely the opposite, it's something of what I'd term throwaway species. One of those that nobody ever looks at. Yet we're surrounded with them. It'll turn up anywhere. Occasionally you'll even get them on gardens if you've got a lot of flowers in your garden. They're a beautiful thing, but very underrated and underwatched. And here is an extremely familiar beetle now in Nottinghamshire, and yet only a few years ago this beetle didn't occur here at all. This is Oedemira nobilis, usually called the swollen thighed beetle, and that's evident by the swollen hind femur of this male. The females don't have the swollen femurs. It's an absolutely beautiful species. And as you can see, it's a beautiful metallic green. There are some slight variations, and depending on age, sometimes they can have sort of bright metallic orange tones. They really are a beautiful beetle. And see, now you can expect this beetle to be found on the flower heads in areas such as this trackside here, where it's particularly rich in flowers. A striking species and a super addition to the Nottinghamshire fauna. I do like these. It's a particular favourite, and off it goes. Here's a typical section of this wonderful trackside verge. It's rich, lots of knapweed, which is the purple flower in front, but you've got St John's wort, and there's birchwood trefoil, there's a range of umbellifers, brambles growing through it, and we've got bramble at the back. This is really a spot That you just park yourself here for an hour and see what flutters in and is attracted here. You'd be quite surprised. There's a good range of butterflies. What I've seen so far have been ringlet and meadow brown, which you'd expect, but comma, small tortoiseshell, or common butterflies, but all welcoming this valued source of nectar. Now here's a caterpillar that's probably very familiar to most people that walk the countryside, although not necessarily just the countryside, because this Cinnabar caterpillar is a species that you'll find even in urban areas wherever ragwort grows. And the moth is day flying as well, and beautifully coloured in dark green to almost black forewings with pink markings on, but then beautiful pink hindwings. It flies during the day and is often thought by many to be a butterfly, but it is a moth and produces these beautiful caterpillars. Now, as with most things in the insect world, if it's marked in similar fashion, a combination of black and gold, especially if it's striped, it's a warning sign that the caterpillar itself isn't edible and will certainly make whatever eats it very, very sick. So, avoid eating Cinnabar caterpillars. Now, of course, the coloration is probably derived from the fact that it eats ragwort, and ragwort has had unnecessary bad publicity regarding its toxicity to horses. Now, yes, if horses eat this in a certain state and eat enough of it, it can make them sick, but horses aren't daft and they won't keep eating anything that starts to even remotely make them feel sick or ill. But the publicity has been so effective that most councils now habitually and annually remove ragwort from anywhere on their grounds or where they look after. But it's been quite unnecessary. Yet ragwort provides an extremely important role, and that role is that it's one of the best nectar sources for invertebrates in the late summer period, the time when the amount of flowers and nectar sources is few. As such, stands of ragwort growing in fields will be visited by an endless number of flies and bees and wasps. All sorts will visit it for nectar. It's a very important plant, and those managing nature reserves and our highways and byways and parks and recreation areas need to bear that in mind and read up more accurately on the toxicity of ragwort. It's not the nasty, deadly plant that it's deemed to be. Well, that's kept me occupied for half an hour. It's surprising what turns up. There's nothing rare, but given the right conditions and the right sort of nectar plants, and somewhere for those nectar plants to thrive without being cut down or sprayed, it pays dividends. Nature doesn't ask for a great deal, just a bit of time and a bit of peace and quiet, really. That peace and quiet and time for an area to develop. And how this has developed over the last sort of 10-15 years has been quite amazing. There's a bit of bracken here that's been allowed to come across from when the pines were here, but this flower rich section is quite beautiful. It's mostly common stuff, but if you spent enough time here and put a lot of effort in, you'd get to the rare stuff. But it's just good as a nectar source. There's lots of butterflies visiting here. Wherever there's butterflies, of course, and a nectar source, the range of insects will always be great. My nectar source is at home. It's in the fridge. So it's time I made a move to imbibe in some nectar of the golden variety.